we'll turn it over to Jen Ewers, who's already introduced herself too.
Hi there,
I just
everybody.
wanted to say sorry for that. I was supposed to hit record at the very beginning. There are a few people who couldn't come, and I said, sure. My apologies, and now I'll kick it over to Jen.
Oh, thank you, and good morning. Thanks for joining us. So when I was thinking about today's event, the tagline from the United Way came to mind. Their focus is to advance the common good by focusing on education, income, and health. These are the building blocks for a good quality of life. At Fink and Paris Insurance, our clients are not abstract multinational corporations. They're our friends and neighbors. They're local business owners. They're my son's classmates and his teachers. A hungry student might be disruptive in his class and cannot focus. It's an easy choice to support the Survival Center to combat this hunger. The Greater Northampton Chamber of Commerce, as community champions and connectors, have put out the call to its members. Along with fellow chamber members, I've sorted toiletries at the Survival Center, and I've prepared meals at Manna Community Kitchen. At Big Brothers Big Sisters of Hampshire County, their mission is to unlock a young person's potential through mentorships. This nudge of support is so impactful. I think this effort's also mirrored throughout the community by our chamber. When a local business sponsors a grant for a school or an individual purchases an item from a local shop, we're keeping a vibrant, healthy local economy. We're supporting each other, and it's all about our relationships and bettering the community. The chamber is such a rock star connector. We host networking and educational events. The weekly email blast has a tremendous following thanks to their timely and relevant content. I'm eager for Tuesdays at 1 o'clock to open that email. When Cancer Connection recently hosted an afternoon picnic and we launched a poetry book sale, I made sure to contact Jack at the chamber for help. He was able to quickly support and to get out our invitation. He has a far greater reach than I do as an individual board member, as a mom, as a neighbor. The chamber could quickly spread the word throughout our community. So I think throughout my nonprofit work, I've met many community champions. Cancer Connection recently partnered with All Out Adventures to include our participants, which are facing cancer, and their families and caregivers. They're included in the All Out Adventures programs that provide outdoor recreational activities. And I'm very pleased to be able to introduce the Executive Director of All Out Adventures, Karen Foster.
Thanks, Jennifer. That program is something I'm really excited. It's a very small pilot, and I'm excited to see it grow. We've had some folks take advantage. So as Jennifer said, and as you heard, I'm Karen Foster. I'm the Executive Director of All Out Adventures. I think many, but not all of you are familiar with our work. We're based down on Pleasant Street between Northampton Bicycle and Northampton Martial Arts. We were founded in 2001. We're a very small team that does a lot of work. There are 3 of us who work there full time and 6 program leaders, and we run about 180 outdoor recreation programs each year throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island for people who have disabilities and their family and friends, as well as seniors and veterans. So actually just today, I've got staff heading over to Northampton High School and JFK Middle School to cycle with the special needs classes there. And tomorrow we'll be in Hadley, and Friday at Look Park. So we're everywhere. And I was really touched to be invited to talk today. All Out Adventures, we used to be in East Hampton, and we joined the East Hampton Chamber of Commerce years ago, just purely utilitarian, because we needed health insurance. At the time, we only had 1 staff member who needed health insurance, and chamber membership was a requirement of purchasing it through the Small Business Service Bureau. So we joined. And then from there, it was just a small benefit, but we used the conference room at the East Hampton Chamber to hold our board meetings. And so when we moved to Northampton, we transferred our membership over to Northampton. It's probably been 8 years now. And again, it kind of took me a while to sort of consider what the possibilities of membership in the chamber were, and to explore them, much of it limited by our own staff capacity and our own time. But one of the things that's been most impactful to me as an executive director was for a while, there was a nonprofit roundtable and learning session. And I think, probably business owners feel this too, but being the executive director of a nonprofit can be very isolating because I don't have people to bounce ideas or challenges off. Sometimes those challenges are challenges that I need to address with staff or the board, but I don't necessarily want to brainstorm with them. So that was incredibly valuable just to help build that community. And when I reflect on that, a lot of people have been talking about connection today. In 2019, All Out Adventures, we went through a tremendous financial challenge, like the level of financial challenge where I spent months not knowing if our organization was going to survive the challenge. And we lost our office space. It was pretty terrible. But through that, Shargentis from Riverside Industries extended an invitation to us to land in their building temporarily while we continued our search for office space. And it was a connection that we had made just from being in the community, and their development director had come to the nonprofit roundtable, and we sort of knew of each other's work. And I think that helped. I'm not going to say that was the reason, but I think that personal connection made a significant difference there. And I think that of all of the factors that helped us get through that really tough time, that was the most important one. And then also, it's just been an opportunity for small questions, small connections. I stopped in a couple of weeks ago. I needed COVID tests for my staff, and then had a chance just to ask other questions and hear more about events that were going on. And so as we build our own capacity, I look forward to spending more time with some of the networking opportunities. And there's sort of a lot of comfort in knowing that it's there, and knowing that folks are there, and even just knowing it's happening gives me an in to reach out to other organizations as needed. So that's kind of what it's meant for us. And I appreciate seeing all these familiar and new faces here today.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm trying to share my screen right now, so hopefully you are seeing what I'm seeing. Does it look good? Can you see the PowerPoint? All right, great. So Vince, I'm thinking that you and I can tag team this as we make our way through this presentation. There are certainly lots and lots of things that Vince is has far more expertise than I do. So I would love your comments as we go through. It's just, oh, great. So I just wanted to tell you, I want to make this presentation as poignant and powerful and short as possible, because I really want to get to the part of our time together where we have a chance to have a conversation, because that's my favorite part of my job, is learning all about your jobs. But I do want to let you know a little bit more about the breadth of the chamber, who we are, what makes our Chamber of Commerce maybe a little bit different than maybe other organizations you've worked with, or maybe your notion of what a Chamber of Commerce is. Every chamber reflects the community that they serve, and certainly the maybe stereotypical notion of a chamber isn't us, because of the eclectic, creative, compassionate organizations that are a part of our community. We have about 500 investors, give or take. Of that, Northampton, as we all know, does not have a huge corporate presence. Our largest corporations are actually not-for-profit organizations like Smith College or Cooley Dickinson. And the vast majority of the organizations that we serve are small businesses, with 49% having 5 or under employees. And then if we look at, who's under 20 or 15, it's the other sort of ginormous chunk of organizations that we serve. And 15% of our investors, we call members investors because it's actually how we like to think about our relationship and our responsibility to those people who are supporting our work, is more as investors than as, you're a member of the cool club kind of thing. It's a language thing that we feel strongly about. But 15% of them are not-for-profit organizations. And in the great scheme of chamber world, chambers nationally, that percentage is quite high. Most chambers of commerce don't have such a strong relationship with the not-for-profits in their communities. But we do, because not-for-profit organizations are such a strong industry sector in our community. We're going to take you through the basic areas of our work. And so one of the benefits that we offer to all of our investors is connections, opportunities to connect with other not-for-profit colleagues, to connect with the local business community. And I just wanted to tell you a couple of stories, because people think of going to an Arrive at 5 or a networking event, and the idea is, this very direct correlation of I'm going to meet someone and they're going to buy something from me. And if that isn't what feeds your work, I think there's often a question of, is a networking event for me? And I would like to sort of zoom out and think about connections in a broader way. Certainly there are those direct correlations of you meet someone and they then become a donor, or they provide a service that you need. Yes, that's how networking works too. But also, we recently brought on the Straw Dog Writers Guild. They joined the chamber. They had come to several events before they decided to become investors. And their membership, their investigation of investing started based on Alexis Johnson, who was the former executive director of the International Language Institute. She's now retired. She suggested that Straw Dog really investigate the chamber. We've never had a writers group, to my knowledge, certainly not in my tenure. And so, we were investigating how would they connect, what would turn out to be the benefit of membership for them. So they came to their first Arrive at 5. It happened to be in East Hampton, and it happened to be at Big Bear Used Books and Cafe. Many of you may have attended that event, but if you've never been there before, it is just what it sounds like. It's in one of the old mill buildings. They have a giant used book space that is cozy with lots of chairs, cozy places to sit and investigate your latest, good read. And they also have this lovely cafe, and it's a super cozy place. Well, the Straw Dogs Writers Guild offers a monthly open mic reading. They had been using a bar. I'm not sure which bar it was, but Jackie, who's their director, had described it to me as a place with very sticky floors. And it wasn't the ideal space for them. So they came to the Arrive at 5, they met the owners of Big Bear, and now their monthly open mic night is being held in a cozy, comfortable, literary space where the floors are absolutely not sticky. So they made this connection right away, first Arrive at 5, that ended up making, a really operationally poignant change for their organization. The next story is one very close to my heart. So this year, we had an idea. Heidi plays very closely in this concept. When I have a strange relationship with the chamber in that I worked for the organization between 2000 and 2005, came back in 2018. When we came back in 2018, we wanted to harness the power of our Arrive at Fives to have an impact with our not-for-profit organizations. Heidi and the Survival Center were the beta test for the network concept. So we said, we've got 100 people coming to these events. Let us do a project for you. How can we take that energy and make it meaningful to our not-for-profit partners? So our first network event was at the Survival Center, and we ended up participating in a toiletry drive that you were doing for was it your 40th anniversary? 40th anniversary. And then we used our Arrive at Five attendees to sort toiletries. Very cool concept. But at the end of it, Heidi and some of the other folks that we did that version of network with said, this is awesome, Jess, but for a not-for-profit organization, trying to come up with a project for 100 people between 5 and 7 on a Wednesday evening can be challenging. Very good point. So our new iteration of network is smaller. The chamber is providing marketing, and the chamber is providing volunteers, but we're looking to our not-for-profit partners to tell us how big the project is, when the project should happen, and how many volunteers they really need. So we're not imposing 100 volunteers all at once. We're doing things in a more organic way. Our first new network event was at Manna Community Kitchen. The goal of network is to give the volunteers an opportunity to connect with one another, to give the not-for-profit organization a chance to share their mission and their story, and to connect with new people from the greater Northampton business community in the hopes that they learn more, can become ambassadors for that not-for-profit organization, and perhaps can serve on a board, perhaps will become donors, perhaps will help recruit other volunteers through that really hands-on, eyes-on experience with the not-for-profit organization. We also do quite a lot of social media in conjunction with networks so that we can recognize the volunteers, recognize the for-profit organizations that are sending the volunteers, and really giving a huge shout out to our not-for-profit partner. So we had the event at Manna Kitchen. One of our volunteers that day was Daniel Ryder, who happens to be the publisher for Northampton Living. Daniel worked that day. We made 100 meals. We made pickles for Cuban sandwiches. The next week, we were very busy. We served a lot of people and had meals ready to go for the next day. Daniel was so touched and inspired by that experience that Manna Kitchen is going to be the cover story for their November Thanksgiving issue of Northampton Living. So that's just what we wanted to happen, was that kind of connection, that kind of heart and brain connection that then leads to for-profit organizations helping to share the story, becoming an ambassador, having an impact with our not-for-profit community. These are examples of the opportunities that we offer to our not-for-profit community. There's except for August, there's always at least one event. Most often there's 2 or 3 that are happening throughout the month. And we're working to come up with different ways. We know Arrive at Fives are super successful. We generally expect about 100 people, even post-COVID. There's still sort of our trademark events. But walking into a party with 100 people you may or may not know isn't always super comfortable. So we're trying to do smaller events with other ways to engage. We also have an ambassador committee. Amanda, Jennifer, and Lindsay are all members of the ambassador committee, and they're at almost every single Arrive at 5, helping new folks to make connections. So there's a real effort to create, maintain, and give folks a way to engage in the GNCC community. We're going to show a little bit about network. I've already talked a lot about it, but we got to show you the proof is in the pudding, some pictures. So you can see here, you can see Sue, who works with Karen, doing some tomatoes. We've got to feed some pigs the day we worked at Prospect Meadow Farm, which is a ServiceNet property. That was our second network event. And you can see some pictures of us creating the beautiful meal that we put together at Banna Kitchen. The quality of the meals that they provide to our community in connection a lot with Elisa at Grow Food. I know that you donate some produce to them. I believe I have that right. Is that right, Elisa? Yeah. Okay. And I also, in the corner where you see the Sunbug Solar, that's the kind of acknowledgement that we are trying to marry as part of the network program. So not only is it, a spotlight on that not-for-profit organization and giving a window into the work of that not-for-profit organization, but we're also trying to highlight and celebrate the folks that volunteer their time and the organizations that say, yeah, go spend a day at Prospect Meadow Farm, contributing to our community. We're happy to have you do that. That's the organization we want to be within our community. So we want to give us a shout out there as well. Marketing and visibility. There's a lot of that. We were talking a little bit about my colleague, Jack Brown. He is our senior marketing manager at the Chamber. He works with both the Greater Northampton Chamber of Commerce and the Hampshire Regional Tourism Council, which sits underneath our umbrella. And we have this area of our work and the resource that we're able to offer to our investors has grown exponentially in the past several years. Before COVID, if I had been talking to you about our digital newsletter, I would have very proudly told you that we had about 1,500 subscribers. That has essentially blown up since COVID. We're around 5,500 subscribers now. We attribute that growth to the ability to provide a relevant tool to our community. So whether you're a small business and during COVID, you needed relevant information about what it was to open your doors during COVID, what was the connection with the health department? I know that Jen Ewers has said to me many times that she uses that to know what's going on with the community, what not-for-profit organization has an event coming up, where are new people joining different organizations. And we allow our investors and really the community as a whole to utilize the community connector as a tool. You do not have to be a paying investor of the Greater Northampton Chamber of Commerce to share your news. So if you look back into past issues, you would see job postings for organizations that are not yet investors of the Northampton Chamber of Commerce. We're an open organization, and we believe that if we are to be the experts and advocates on the local economy, we can not only be in conversation with folks who are able to invest at that moment. And we believe that if we have a strong impact on organizational success, when businesses or not-for-profit organizations are able to prioritize their investment in the chamber, they'll they will have already experienced the value of being connected through the community connector or other resources that the chamber offers. You'll see here other statistics. Essentially, many of our not-for-profit organizations really look to us to help expand their reach. So, do you have a job opening? Are you looking for board members? Do you need volunteers? Are you doing a capital campaign? You all, I'm sure, have your own robust networks, but the chamber has, there may be some overlap, but we can help expand your reach for your communications and share our reach into the greater Northampton community. Just a little note, and we could certainly dive into this far more deeply, but the Chamber of Commerce is also the seat of the Hampshire Regional Tourism Council. Vince is the executive director for both organizations, and that organization is responsible for promoting our area to visitors outside our area. So you may not always see the marketing work that is done by the Tourism Council because it's going to Hartford or it's going to Boston or New York City. But it is a huge driver of tourism dollars coming into our area. And as you all know, that's so critical to our local economy. And if our local economy is strong, then our local community is strong. Those two things are connected for infinity. Here, so speaking of a strong economy, here are some of the programs that have happened in the past couple of years where the chamber has taken a lead role in programming that is impactful to the strength of our community. I won't get into the nitty-gritty details of all of these programs because again, we're already at 9:34. But if you have any questions, you'd like to know about the thought process or the, what the impact was, please reach out to Vince or I. We would be happy to dive into any of those details. We wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about something that both Heidi and Karen had referenced. Many of our not-for-profit investors utilize the chamber to get access to information and resources and people that are impactful to their organization. So not everybody was on when I was mentioning this earlier, but we recognize, because we're also a not-for-profit organization, that the hat you wear on any given day could be drastically different. One day you may be asked to be, deep diving into finance or payroll, and the next day you may be evaluating where you, what's the best social media buy for a program that you have coming up. And like many in our entrepreneurial community, your experience with that thing can be varied. So we try to provide resources, access to experts, access to one another that helps you as a leader make good decisions, know what the right questions are to ask as you're evaluating different resources, ideas, plans, all of that good stuff. And on a practical level, we're also doing things that help you operationally. So for example, we mentioned COVID tests. If any of your organizations need COVID tests, please come by the chamber office at 99 Pleasant Street. We literally had boxes up to our ceiling in our conference room, and we can share them with you. We worked with Lindsay Sabadosa's office, and we have that resource. So please, we have that tool that's impactful to the health of our community. It's impactful to your bottom line, so that you're not having to buy those. We have that kind of resource to share with you. Knowledge. This has to do with some of the resources that we offer and some of the partners that we have in community who are helping people to, we're helping people to gain access to experts in an inexpensive, authentic way where you can ask the questions that you need, where you can hear from folks about health insurance opportunities or looking at how do you get and maintain diversity in your board of directors. That's a question that I know probably everyone is wrestling with. So we're trying to provide those tools for our community and access to the experts in our community. Vince, did you want to add anything else to that one? I feel like I was very vague.
No, I think you summed it up quite nicely.
Okay. The chamber is a resource for access to those in local, regional, state government, for us to be able to get their ear, to share your concerns, to be able to bring ideas together that will be impactful to our local economy and our local community. Sometimes that looks like Vince having a seat on a committee or a board like the Economic Development Council of Western Massachusetts. Sometimes it looks like us bringing experts like Lindsay Sabadosa or Joe Comerford to speak with members of our community. Although it's not clear, you see that picture of everyone sitting around a table at the garden house at Look Park. That was actually a program that we put together a couple of years ago, where Joe Comerford came to talk with members of our not-for-profit community about timing and how to align your needs, your asks to state government, so that you're most likely to be able to ride the cycle appropriately. And it was a tremendous conversation, one that I'm really proud of. And
Hey, Jess, can I interrupt for a sec? I'm gonna, because we want to make sure we have time to hear from everybody. I'm just going to put a couple of questions into the chat that people can be thinking of as you come to a close.
Yeah, perfect. So we talked a little bit about our mission, but our vision is really one that I think aligns with so many in our not-for-profit community. A prosperous community distinguished by creativity, inclusion, caring, and stewardship of place for the benefit of all. That's a much bigger idea that I think brings us into alignment, probably with many of your organizations. We believe that the vitality of the local economy relies and is absolutely connected forever to the health of our local community. And those two things need to operate together for us to reach our mission and to achieve our vision. And now I'll stop talking and you all can start talking. If anybody has any questions while Heidi's adding those questions to the chat, please feel free to shout them out. I think we're a small enough group that you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, and please do just shout out. This is definitely meant to be an interactive portion, and this is, the whole thing is not meant to be just a sales pitch, although that was a very persuasive one, Jeff. So thank you for all of that work. Lots to chew on here, and many questions that we have and could ask, but I just thought I'd chunk them out. So just start it, and if you can stop sharing when you get a chance, Jess.
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
No problem. So really, we want to hear from those of you who are not yet investors, who are considering it, who are maybe pretty sure you're not going to be, those of you who are investors. Whether this gives you any ideas about ways that you could benefit from or others could benefit from working with the chamber, maybe ideas that haven't been explored or developed yet. And, also what things do you wish you could get from working with the chamber or, in your wildest fantasy or greatest hopes, but also in your like, I can't imagine that this would be a possibility. This is a great time to be creative with that and see what ideas can develop. So there will be more questions, but just to get the juices flowing, is there anybody who would like to just unmute yourself and offer up ideas, questions, feedback? Jason, please.
Hi. I really appreciate you reaching out and having this meeting specifically for nonprofits. We've been members of the chamber for as long as I've been here, but we have lapsed during the pandemic. The last couple of years have not been members, but always with the intention of coming back. So we're sort of at that place now where I'm really sort of interested in hearing about new ways in which we can engage with the chamber. And for me particularly, I love the idea of partnering more with other nonprofits in the community and finding ways in which we can we do, a lot of people know the Music Center for providing music lessons and classes and things like that, but we do a lot of outreach work, and we rely on the connections with other nonprofits and social service agencies and things to identify the families who have difficulty accessing our services, and finding new avenues for welcoming different corners of our community. So for me, I know that sometimes at the arrive at fives, I feel a little lost. Like, I do know a lot of the business owners and everything, but I felt a lot of the time the intention of being there was a little bit different. So, wondering if there could be dedicated events for nonprofits. Like I would even be willing to host one here at the Music Center that's specifically for nonprofits to network and to talk about possible partnerships and ways in which we can enhance all of our work. So I love that idea. We definitely, because we have a lot of volunteers, we often are purchasing gift cards as thank yous. We think they're like the best gift possible to thank people. So we're often coming in, and I had suggested once before, it's such a little thing, but for the number of gift cards that we purchase, like if it was possible to like waive the processing fee for nonprofits or something to make it easier for us to access more of those, because a lot of the times we need to buy a lot of little denomination cards or things like that, and so it's like a little thing that could help us out. I'm also wondering what the fee structure is right now. Is there a difference for nonprofits versus for-profit businesses?
Well, let me just say, Jason, those are all great ideas and great questions. I didn't write down all the questions, but I did capture the ideas. So let me first say thank you for celebrating and awarding your volunteers with the Northampton gift card. Really appreciate that. And that's certainly one of the things that we can do to be a better partner and supporter with your organization, is to waive those fees when we know that you've got a good cause. We're all connected in what we do for this community through our various missions. And one of the things that's a benefit when you do come to the chamber or when you come back is that we've got a star brainstorming in Jess Thompson. And she can meet with you one-on-one, give you the consultation that you need to bridge the interests of a for-profit business who might want to work with your organization, and also look across our network of nonprofits to see where there are some synergies and shared interests and experiences that might benefit some of the things you want to do. So that one-on-one consultation and idea sharing and brainstorming is something that we welcome and we love. And yeah, take us up on that as well. Jess, did you want to add anything? I saw you maybe jotting down some of the questions or other.
I did. We did have a not-for-profit resource roundtable. This was prior to COVID and during COVID. So that's our ambassador committee will be looking at programming in the next couple of months and trying to figure out, how the puzzle pieces all come together. But that is, that's certainly something that we could look into. I know that Karen had mentioned that that was a big win for her as well. So I love that feedback. And like Vince said, my favorite thing is to meet with folks. Like I'm a meeting goober. So bring it on. Let's do some brainstorming and figure out, the goals that you currently have for the Community Music Center, what we do and how we can align to, really further your goals. It's almost, it's a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle for me, because not to get all flighty about it, but I sort of see the chamber as a starry sky, and it's the constellation of benefits that's going to work perfectly for you is going to be different than what works best for Heidi or Lindsay. But when I have the opportunity to know what you need and where you're going, we can piece those things together. And that's my favorite thing.
Jason, thanks for your question and also for the offer of hosting a nonprofit get together. I too think that would feel very, very good. I see Susan agreeing as well. Sometimes we've all been in these Zooms where one of the first questions is kind of like directed toward the nonprofit. What are your challenges? What's wrong? What can we help fix? Honestly, I don't find that a very Zoom necessarily a very safe space to just kind of come out with here's all the things that are plaguing my night's sleep. But a little bit more face to face, a little bit more trust and experience within the room. And often it's not our mission stuff that is necessarily the thing that we need some outside intervention or help or a connection. It's sort of what Jess described with the Straw Dog Writers and the Big Bear books. It's like, how do I find a bookkeeper? How do I find a remote bookkeeper? How do I work with a remote bookkeeper? Some of the back end stuff that we don't necessarily lead with, but we can find help from one another. I'd love to invite more great ideas and questions or needs or anything else that's coming up. Susan.
I thought the presentation number one was great because I do think, we are often nonprofits are little silos. Some of us are bigger than others, and that connection and brainstorming off each other is so important. And I would love to get together with you, Jess, one-on-one and just talk about, we are a program that advocates for foster kids in and aging out of foster care. And we're tiny, but mighty. So we are sometimes just being opportunities to talk about what we do. Our CASA program, which is Court Appointed Special Advocates, is always looking for volunteers, and those kind of volunteers, it's a really heavy duty commitment. So it's really people getting to hear about what the work entails, because it's both wonderful and heartbreaking. And that's one piece. We also have a program called Focus, which is young adults aging out of foster care. And how can we best support? I mean, these kids are often literally need to be taught about how do you walk in and apply for a job? How do you walk in after that and make the follow? It's literal for them. How do you do financial wellness? How do you do emotional wellness? I mean, there's just so many parts, and we have And that program is ongoing and growing, but it's connecting with community leaders about them, but also mentors, and their adolescents, late adolescents, who have fought for themselves. I'm sorry, I'm going into a pitch now. Who are both adolescents who are just sort of like, talk to the hand, but I really need you. And kids who have survived by themselves. So that trust is a big thing. So it's looking for folks who are interested, and we all, so it's having opportunity to meet with other nonprofits and also being able to just talk about what we do in a safe, as Heidi said, environment, and sort of share stories. So I do think when we were in Hadley, I looked at the Northampton, and the cost at that time was higher. So I'm going to be interested in seeing what the cost, because our budget is tight. So, but I loved what I just saw. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
I wonder if I could just make a suggestion. Like, I know we're part of the National Guild for Community Arts Education, and the way they structure their fees for members is based on budget size. There's sort of a sliding scale for nonprofit organizations, so that, organizations with larger budgets might be able to afford more than a smaller nonprofit that, it's just something to think about as a fee structure. And maybe some of the larger for-profit businesses wouldn't mind even, being able to subsidize some, if they partner with certain organizations or something. There may be something there.
And Elisa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. I agree that it was really powerful and convincing, and it makes it feel like a no-brainer that this is a good idea for nonprofits. And I also just want to thank Susan and Jason, because I agree with everything that you put forward. And I'm also interested in the possibility of some kind of sliding fee scale based on budget for nonprofits. So I'd love to hear more about that if you have any time. I actually also have more kind of politicized questions for you. I'd really love to hear what the relationship of the Northampton Chamber is to the National Chamber of Commerce. Just because I know of its strong Republican and conservative leanings. And the other question that I have is about how the chamber gets involved in some local political issues. I know that in the past, I haven't agreed always with some of the stances that the local chamber has taken on local political issues, and have kind of wondered what under your new leadership is happening with how you advocate for different kind of socio-political things that are going on in the city. So
Well,
those are
sure.
my questions.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and thank you for that, Elisa. At the national level, I'll start there. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a real purpose. It's heavily corporate influenced and based, but the Greater Northampton Chamber has no affiliation whatsoever with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We are a member of the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. The difference with that organization is that it operates like a mega chamber, if you will. So all the chambers in the country are invited to become members of the association. And it really is just a resource for personal development and growth and chamber development. And I have found it in my 3 years to just be a great resource when I need answers to things and questions like you just asked. Now, from a and they operate very much like most chambers around the country. From a local political standpoint, this chamber, and keep in mind, I inherited this chamber, which was a wonderful thing. But what I also came into was the launch of a new strategic plan that said we were going to be a more open organization and a lot more engaged in the community. There are political issues that come up, and the chamber historically has taken a stance of neutrality. Like, we've got, investors on one side of the line and others on the other side. So it's rare, very rare that we will take a stance, but we will stimulate dialogue by getting the information out there, by asking the provocative questions. And through our committee, was particularly with committees like the Economic Development Committee that works on high profile, high visibility, high impact issues, we will take a stand. But it's a united front that's been clearly vetted and well thought out, so that we can have conviction behind it and stand by it. And sometimes we get attacked for not taking a stand a certain way, but our goal is to make sure that people are informed and educated so they can come to their own conclusions and decisions. But there are occasions and times when we are conflicted and we go the extra mile and take a stand. I have had one or two of those instances in my short 3 years here, and it was as uncomfortable as you might imagine, given the culture of the organization. So I hope that adds perspective. I hope it answers your question, and let's continue to keep talking about it, because you may bring us an issue where it's clear that we should have a strong voice, united voice, coming from the majority of our investors in the chamber. 500 voices united on one front.
Yeah, thanks for these great questions and for really helping to push us to be better and more representative and more inclusive. This is exactly what we're aiming for in getting all of you around the table with us. Are there any last questions or comments that people want to make, respecting your time to be done in a few minutes? Yeah, Karen.
Just very quick, because the membership dues have come up a couple of times. And I'd forgotten to mention that my first phone call ever was with Jess was years ago, when my organization couldn't pay them on the schedule that we were being, that they were due on. And it was an instant work with me to make it possible. So I had wanted to put that out earlier and just wanted to say that.
And it's also flexible, where you can pay monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or yearly, whatever fits your budget. And I love the idea of sponsorships for nonprofits. That's something that we have not asked our business community, but I think when the pandemic hit, Heidi, you said it best. You said it's now the nonprofits' opportunity to support the small business community who's been there for us. And they've come back, and they're coming back strongly, staffing issues aside. And I know that many would welcome an idea like that, to at least maybe have a fund that could support nonprofit investment in the chamber. So that's a great idea. Yeah. That's something we'll look into.
And I would just issue an invitation or a challenge to think of, if you find yourself still wondering whether this is the right association for you, or especially as you're out talking to other nonprofit leaders who may be not as convinced as you are, and wondering what their place might be around the table. A lot of the things that you've been hearing about today are kind of open already, because the chamber is not a pay us first and then reap the benefits. So advertise in the community connector if you have a job opening, or come to an economic development committee meeting over Zoom. It's incredibly convenient, in the Zoom age, and sit around the table with a bunch of business leaders, thought partners, nonprofits, and find yourself hearing about, honestly, I sit at that table and they're like the big players, the landlords and the downtown business, blah, 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 blah. And then I find myself thinking this is recorded, so I won't say what I think, but I just think to myself, no, they're most of the time I'm on Zoom, I'm with a bunch of nonprofit leaders, and we think and talk differently sometimes. And I have found myself like getting a little butterflies in the stomach and nervous, but then saying like, whoa, I need to speak up here, and finding my voice being heard and being respected and making a difference, and finding that um, it changes the dynamic of like being viewed as, oh, a nonprofit, right? Right. You're coming to me with your annual appeal, your hand out, or like, what do you need from us? And instead, like, hey, we've got great ideas, we've got resources, we've got people, we've got a network. We're here to help you. And it's changed the dynamic. So I would encourage you to invite your people in your network to show up at the table first if they're not convinced, and participate. And I think you'll find yourself really persuaded.
Well, it is 10:02. I know you all are incredibly busy human beings. Which hat are you going to be wearing today? Maybe 3 of them. But you'll hear from me. It's super easy to set up if you'd like to have a brainstorming meeting, if you want to talk about dues, if you want to dive deeper into any of the things that have come up today. I've got a link in my signature, and we'll come up with a convenient for you time, and we can dive into your goals, your priorities, and what we have available, whether it's an immediate, yes, sign me up, I'm ready to join the chamber, or I want to test these things out. We'll create a path that works for you, for your team, for your organization. And like I said, we need a healthy, vibrant business community to have a healthy, vibrant community. So no matter what, partnership between our organizations, I believe, is imperative. So let's just call this step 1. And I will look forward to connecting with you more deeply. And thank you all for taking the time to connect with us today. Thank you to our co-hosts for being here. You already do so much for the Chamber of Commerce. So thank you for taking more time to the Chamber and to our community. Thank you for taking more time to be here today. So
Thank
I'll
you.
look forward
Thanks,
to connecting
everybody.
with you all.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.